Jesus, it's like pumping out tomatoes. So big, it keeps on growing. They look like watermelons, but they're cucumbers. It's giving a lot of food. It is July something, I don't remember. I wanted to give you guys an update of my backyard vegetable garden in my raised beds. It is in full production mode at this point. Lots of veggies going on. I've got some zucchini. Let's see, here's one that's like growing. I also have some trailing squash, and they're coming on. The cucumbers have been producing like mad crazy. These are dragon egg cucumbers. You can see one there. I think something took a bite out of it. They grow to look like a pretty large egg shape. The eggplant is incredibly productive. There are a bunch of them. They're gonna continue to grow, and I can harvest another batch in a few days. A couple of pepper plants planted here. They're receiving a lot of shade. They actually produce peppers. Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's being covered by this milkweed. It's really pretty. It's about to bloom. Bunching onions here. I've been harvesting a bunch at a time, and some young ones that will continue. Tatsoi I've been harvesting a head at a time, and tatsoi is way more heat tolerant and a better stir-fry veggie to grow in summer than bok choy. Bok choy bolts really easily. And look how beautiful it is. Pretty much most plants that are like this color, and they are more tolerant of the sun. We have some sage and then some Genovese basil there. All right, all the tomatoes are on the trellises. Jesus, it's like pumping out tomatoes. Lucid gem. So big, it keeps on growing. Still waiting for it to ripen. I noticed that this variety actually gets some mildew issues, so not the healthiest. That's why it's really thin, because I took out a lot of the foliage that was affected. So I'm not sure if I'm going to grow this next year. It all depends on the flavor of the tomatoes. This is sun gold. I already harvested a bunch. And then this is black cherry tomato. Some of the tomatoes I harvested a little early, just as they're ripening, because I've got little birds. I want to make sure that I have enough tomatoes for myself before they get to them. Romano beans here. It's like a bush type. It's kind of like a yellow color. And over here, there's some more tomatoes. I just did not have a chance to stake it, so they're kind of all over the place. This is not the way to grow tomatoes, guys. It becomes really hard to harvest. These are San Marzano tomatoes. They're just all over the place. Behind it is, what is this? Is this a Paul Robeson? It might be. It gets pretty big. This is Flambeau. It has been really productive, more productive than the Romano beans. I'm going to seed these plants a little more. I think there's an opportunity to replace the Romanos with the Flambeau beans and still get a couple harvests before summer is over. We have some chard and then some lettuce greens. This one is from Botanical Interest, but it's not doing that great. I'm not really satisfied with this mix, even though it's a summer mix. You can see some of them are bolting. They just don't look glossy. I think they're stressed from the heat, so I'm not happy about that. Okay, we have another heirloom tomato, but this is a smaller one. What is this called? Green zebra. You know, I like the size because I know that they're going to ripen faster than the really large tomatoes. If you live in a climate that's kind of mild or doesn't really get hot, it's better to grow tomatoes that are smaller. More of a guarantee that you're gonna actually get a harvest. And then this one is Juliet. You can see I've been picking a lot of them because this is incredibly prolific. And it does turn red. I just picked all of them. And this one is Super Sweet 100, a red cherry tomato. I tried to actually make a video earlier, but somehow I accidentally deleted the file. So you don't really see too much color going on here, but it was before and during the harvest. I wanted to show you guys how much I was harvesting. It was ridiculous for just today. So sorry about that. I don't know, something messed up and it got deleted. Okay, we have Thai basil here. I keep on pinching because I want it to branch out and give me more. And then a bunch of peppers. Some hot peppers and sweet peppers. These serranos are starting again. We have some shishitos. And then what is this? This is Fresno chili, Italian roaster. It's one of my favorite. Cucumber here, except it's being affected by a really annoying pest. And I should really take this cucumber out. Prolific. and giving me a lot. Here's that vining, trailing summer winter squash again, and it looks so pretty. I just let my garden do its thing, and it's turning into a jungle, but I like it. It's an abundant jungle. Kind of going into the lomandra. It's okay. You know, it's kind of being supported there. More tatsoi and some red vein sorrel and some lettuce. Lettuce does not look good. I'm not happy with whatever this mix was. Tatsoi is doing okay. The purple variety bolts less. It's much more heat tolerant. Some of these are starting to bolt right there, and then here it was bolting, so I kind of snapped off the flower. The purple burgundy variety is much better in summer. More peppers. You gotta keep on picking them. And the more you pick, the more they produce. And make sure you apply compost, worm castings, and fertilizer regularly, especially if you're growing very close together. You can grow like this. This is like bio-intensive gardening for a lot of vegetable plants, but not all. You know, there are some plants you can't really grow. Like this, for instance, zucchini needs space. But anything that's trailing, you can have it like trail off the bed. If you have taller plants, you can stake them up on a trellis so that it saves space in the bed. But whenever you're planting intensely like this, you need to fertilize more regularly. For me, I don't like to overdose on fertilizer, but I do regular applications of compost, fertilizer, and fish kelp feed, a very light dose of that every 3 weeks. It's giving so much food, and I just love it. If I want to make something, I go outside and I pick what I need right then and there. I don't have to worry about washing it. I don't spray. I just do a quick rinse and it's good to go. This is mouse melon. It's also known as Mexican sour gherkin. You see how big it got? It is producing early for me. Usually it starts producing a lot in August into September and then a little bit in October, but it already started producing in late June, and now I'm getting regular harvests of these really cute snacking cucumbers. It'll get a little bigger than this. They look like watermelons, but they're cucumbers. They have a punchy flavor, sort of similar to sorrel. So this is nice to add in a salad if you don't want to add vinegar or tomatoes. It kind of has that acidy element. It's not like a sweet cucumber. It has a really nice crunch to it. Can't emphasize this enough, but when you grow vertically, it is so much easier to harvest things. I mean, they're just dripping off of the trellis, as opposed to like what I did here or what I didn't do. No tomato cage, no stakes really, except that really sad stake, and they're just kind of flopping all over the bed. A lot of the tomatoes are under the foliage and the branches, so I have to kind of hunt for them. Really annoying. When you're spending a lot of time touching the leaves, you get this kind of yellow powdery residue that's kind of gross. I highly recommend growing tomatoes like this. Another cucumber plant. This is a pickling cucumber, and this variety is small. It's intended for containers. It has been very productive up until now recently. And I wonder if it's just one of those short crops. You know, I'm hoping that it's going to continue for the rest of the season. It's called Little Leaf, and I got these seeds from Johnny's Selected Seeds. I don't even know what to do. I've been giving away lots of cucumbers. I don't know. There's just a lot. There's a lot. And you see there's more tomatoes there because this plant is just kind of going all over the place. Just tomatoes everywhere. It's giving a lot of food. All right, let's check out this little section here. A couple more zucchini plants. This one is a yellow variety. You can see it's growing. There's some growing. By the way, this is a nectarine plum, and I did a little bit of pruning on this just to reduce the height. It's not thoughtful pruning at all. It's just taking the really vigorous shoots down, reduce the foliage, and it suppresses its growth. If you're concerned about fruit trees getting too big for your small space, you usually want to do like mid to late summer pruning. And it doesn't have to be thoughtful. You just need to take material off. If there are any vigorous shoots, just take them down about a third. It's going to slow down the growth so that in winter, when you actually do structural pruning, you can do it more easily. When it starts growing again in spring, it's not going to react. It's not going to push out incredible amounts of growth. It'll be more manageable. Under here, we have dill still. And I planted some chives recently. This is like a microclimate here. It's shaded, it's much more cooler. We got celery that actually tastes good. It's actually sweet. And this is the new food area. You know, if you guys were wondering what this looked like before I made a video on it, you can check it out. I have lots of random roses and perennials, but then I also planted a lot of food that can tolerate shade. If you have a shady area, you could actually grow cucumbers pretty well and eggplant. But when it comes to beans, you really need full sun. Tomatoes, you can still grow in shade, as long as it's not deep shade, but they will be leggy, and you probably want to grow the cherry tomatoes. An ornamental basil, you can eat this, but it's prettier as an ornamental. This is called Wild Magic. Got these from Annie's Annuals. They're gonna get pretty big. This is gonna fill out and make it look a little decent here. We got some tomatoes that I planted a little late. This is another cherry tomato. I think it's called Green Grape, one of my favorite varieties. Some lettuces. And then the beans, they're just not doing well. We have potatoes and beans here. Beans, no good. Here's the lacinato kale. Keep on picking the leaves and it just grows like a little tree. And when it gets less and less productive, or if it wants to flower, then you can cut it midway. It's going to start branching out after a few weeks and turn into a little bush instead of a little mini tree. I can show you what that looks like in another example. So this is how it was planted, and I just keep on picking. And then I cut it down because it was kind of getting aphids here because it's a little too shady. And so now it's branching out. So there's a branch here, 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 and it's going to turn into a little bush. This is red Russian kale. It can perennialize in Northern California depending on where you live and where you plant it. It can live up to like 2 or 3 years, possibly. Sometimes it's just better to keep it rather than taking it out. It already has developed roots. It's situated, it's acclimated to the climate. Go over here, we have a couple of tomatoes, pretty shady. And it's pretty leggy, right? But as soon as the plant grows and reaches just enough sun, it still will be very productive. You just need to make sure to give it some support, like with these cages. These cages I got from Summer Winds, and I really like them. You can fold them down and store them easily. They can be shaped like a diamond or a square. Can fit different types of spaces. Japanese black truffle, one of my favorite tomatoes. You see what's going on here? This is the beginning of blossom and rot. These beds are not on irrigation, so I actually have to hand water them. Like the valve is not working for this one. Whenever you're doing inconsistent watering, you get blossom and rot. It's okay, it's still edible. I would just cut off that part. I love this variety, incredibly productive, incredibly delicious, very reliable. Paul Robeson tomato here. One of the most delicious tomatoes I've ever grown. Here's another one. And then I've got some parsley growing, some lemon basil, a variegated oregano, and then some escarole. Yes, I'm growing escarole. This part is shady and temps are much cooler around here. I'm able to grow escarole. Oh, I do want to show you what I'm growing in the front yard. Really, really quick. This is the best time of the day when the sun is setting. I usually go outside and have a glass of wine and just enjoy the moment. We got a tomato here. It's growing in shade, but it's still producing. This is Brad's Atomic Grape. These are going to come on later, probably September. They're cherry tomatoes too. I don't remember the variety. Random stuff. Some peppers too. They're going to come on later. But look at this. This is delicata squash. I didn't think it would really grow, but it's doing okay. Hopefully we'll get something. The problem is I only have one delicata squash. For winter squash, you do want to plant 2 or 3 to help each other. It helps with coordination of flowers. Oh well, we'll see what happens. It's a mix of ornamentals, and then there's some oregano and basil. There's another cherry tomato there, and here's another climbing bean. So a lot going on. Okay, we have another hidden tomato here. It got a late start. Also, this part of the garden, the front yard, is mostly drought tolerant, so it barely gets any water. That's why it's looking kind of sad, but it's still producing. Here's a pomegranate tree. I just planted this a couple months ago. It's producing 1 pomegranate, and this is from a cutting that my father gave me from our old tree in our Los Angeles home. Isn't that cool? These are French plums. They're small. That's how they're supposed to look. They grow a little bigger, but they're coming on. I did some summer pruning. I brought down the canopy. Again, it doesn't have to be thoughtful pruning. During winter, the fruit tree is dormant, it's resting, but it's actually growing underground and it's developing more roots. It's collecting the winter rain. So when you actually prune in winter without doing summer pruning, and you make major cuts, the plant suddenly reacts because it has a lot of pent-up energy that's collected over the summer through its foliage and through the winter rains. It actually exacerbates the problem. It becomes even more vigorous and larger. To keep fruit trees compact, you want to do pruning 2 times a year. Summer pruning to reduce the growth, and then winter pruning to improve its structure. One last thing let's look at. Got a hedge here going on, a natural hedge, and this is pineapple guava. It's coming on, so they're forming. This is usually used in baking or making preserves. You usually harvest them in late September into October. 1 persimmon growing. So sad, but I have one, only one. Normally I don't grow like this, guys. It is because of, our situation here right now. I grow a moderate amount of veggies usually, but if you have the space, why not? I'm really pleased with the results so far. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you guys later. Bye, guys.